Alrighty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, and city officials. We will begin the February 22nd, 2010 meeting of the Chillicothe City Council in just a few minutes. But before we begin, we have scheduled a public hearing on the first item on our legislative agenda this evening. The hearing deals with the proposed rezoning of the property at 15 Western Avenue from RO to C4. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the proposed rezoning? If so, please step forward, announce yourself with your name and address for our records. If anybody has anything to say, please. Okay.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but since nobody else did, I guess I will. I think this is a poor move for the city to make.
Name and address, please.
Oh, okay. Connie Riley, 256 Church Street. I've been in the meetings where this has been discussed, and the issue was that they want the zoning to put a car lot in this business. It was pretty much determined that this was not a good thing. The city engineers and everybody else said, yeah, there's not enough room. Well, and I don't know if this is true because it's not been discussed again. They said, well, we're not really going to put a car lot in there. Well, if they're not going to put a car lot in there, then they don't need this type of zoning, and it should go back to the Planning Commission. So I think you might have a little bit of a legal issue there. So there's really no need, if you're not going to put a car lot in there, to give them the zoning for it and then walk away, and 6 months later you've got a car lot. That's all.
Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Is there any council members or administration that have anything to add to that? Mrs. Ames?
Thank you, President Arnold. Yes, I do. I want to say a few things. I have been to the Planning Commission meeting, the committee meetings for it, all the discussions. I just want to clarify for people what is being asked. Right now it's RO, which is residential office, which is family dwellings, but also C1 uses, which include things like offices for insurance companies, beauty shops, that type of small business type thing. What it's being asked for is to have a C4 status, which is a completely more congested, more busy type thing. Some of the different C4 statuses are motorcycle dealers, boat dealers, motor vehicle dealers, mobile home dealers, retail nurseries, lumber and other building material dealers. So to me, it does not matter which of these uses is being asked for. These uses are not a good use at this particular property. The property is a small property. The property has state routes on two corners. It is right now RO. The property that backs up to it is R8, it's residential. R6 across the street. There is a C4 where there's the police gas station and a dry cleaners, but again, this is small business. This is not high volume. This is not high traffic. This is not something that is going to be a detriment to this location. So I am definitely not in favor of this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ames. Mrs. Lester.
President Arnold, I am speaking for the people that live in that area that have contacted me about the car lot when it was there. It was a nuisance for them because not only did they use the area that included the parking lot, they used the streets adjacent to the parking lot, which meant the people that lived in that area could not park in front of their homes or on the street because they were occupied by other vehicles that belonged to people who either worked there or they had parked a vehicle there for 8 hours or sometimes 24 hours. So for that reason, I would appreciate it if they would not zone it for a car lot or other areas that Ms. Ames mentioned, because it doesn't fit in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lester. Mrs. Patrick.
Thank you, President Arnold. I have to agree with both Mrs. Ames and Mrs. Lester. I've been to those meetings also, and that's what they're requesting is a drastic change to go from RO to C4. you know, and that size lot is just too much, it's too small to accommodate any more intense use of the property. And it becomes a safety issue, which I'm afraid if we would grant it, the way people like to sue could maybe make the city liable for granting that for a car lot. And there's just, they've already mapped out, there's white stripes on the property where the right-of-way line is now, and there's just no room to park cars on that lot and back them out safely.
Thank you, Mrs. Patrick. Mrs. Malone.
Thank you, President Arnold. Being chair of the engineering committee, which this has been in my committee for quite some time now, I spoke with Mr. Chuck Wiley, who is the spokesperson for his mother since his father's passing. And at the current time, Mr. Wiley has assured me that his brother is going to use that piece of property for an insurance business, and I take the man at his word. My concern, dovetailing on what Mrs. Riley spoke to, is that that's fine. But what about a year from now if Mr. Wiley or Mrs. Wiley decides to sell that property? That opens it up to anyone who wishes to purchase that property, and now they've got a C4 property and can do anything they under the guise of C4. So it isn't that I don't feel that anyone is being vindictive to the Wileys, but more to the point of what everyone has already spoken to, that this is just inappropriate for that corner. The traffic volume, the small lot, etc. So with all due respect to the Wileys, I also do feel this is a very poor fit for this piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Malone. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, President Arnold. I also went down into that neighborhood. I knocked on doors one Sunday afternoon. I worked the entire block around that neighborhood. And of the people that responded, the majority were not in favor of that being a car lot.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? If there's no other discussion on the zoning hearing, I now close the hearing, and we'll move forward with our regular council meeting. Mr. Fawson, would you continue with our roll call, please?
Trutchell.
Here.
Sidbro.
Here.
Sharp.
Here.
Prohl.
Here.
Patrick.
Here.
Malone.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Cross. Ames.
Here.
Thank you. Our pastor for the invocation was not here this evening, so if we all will, please rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from the previous meeting have been distributed for review. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? Mrs. Lester.
President Arnold, I would like to accept the minutes as they were received.
Thank you very much. And seconded by Mrs. Malone. And roll call on the acceptance of the minutes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Sidbro.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Malone.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
Ames.
Yes.
And the minutes have been accepted. At this time, we have reports from the committees. Would Mr. Trutchell?
Thank you, President Arnold. Parks and Rec Committee has three items on tonight's agenda. Item 3 is to accept and appropriate $510 a donation by the Brewer Heights Entrance Club to purchase trees which sit along Limestone Boulevard at the entrance to Brewer Heights. There used to be some willow trees in there that were kind of gnarly, and we took them out at the request, for the most part, of the Garden Club, and they furnished the money to put them in. And I want to thank them, and at the appropriate time, I urge council's support to pass this tonight. Item 6 is an application for a grant of $5,000 to David Mead Massey Trust. For years, David Mead Massey has been kind enough to donate or contribute $5,000 towards the fireworks display each year on the 4th of July.